In Chicago, Mexican Independence Day celebrations clouded by threats of ICE raids. On the Lower West Side of Chicago, the predominantly Latino Pilsen neighborhood came alive on Saturday for Mexican Independence Day celebrations. Music echoed through the streets and green, white, and red flags fluttered as costume performers and children paraded through the community, drawing cheers from families lining the sidewalks. Baskets of treats were handed out, and the streets were filled with the sights and sounds of cultural pride. Yet beneath the joyful atmosphere, there was a tangible sense of caution. Parade goers carried bright orange whistles around their necks, ready to signal if federal immigration agents appeared, reflecting widespread anxiety over potential enforcement actions. Across Chicago, the usually vibrant Independence Day celebrations were subdued due to fears of immigration crackdowns under President Donald Trump's administration. Home events were canceled or postponed. In Waconda, the annual Latino Heritage Festival was called off, with officials citing both recent weather issues and concerns over immigration enforcement. Similarly, in Waukegan, a parade that has been held for 30 years was postponed from September 14th to November 1st to protect participants, particularly given the nearby Great Lakes Naval Base that could serve as a command center for federal immigration agents. El Grito Chicago, a two-day festival in downtown Grant Park, also delayed its celebrations, citing the safety of the community as a priority. Residents expressed understanding and support for these decisions, recognizing the heightened risk. Political figures, including Illinois Representatives Mike Quigley and Jesus Chuy Garcia, joined the Pilsen Parade, signaling solidarity with the Latino community and drawing attention to the city's preparation for possible federal operations. Chicago has faced scrutiny for policies limiting cooperation with federal immigration authorities, and the city had previously been a target of enforcement during Trump's first term. Anticipated operations are expected to involve immigration and customs enforcement, customs and border protection, and potentially other federal agencies. In response, Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an order preventing Chicago police from assisting federal agents in civil immigration enforcement or participating in joint operations. Community organizations and schools are actively educating residents on their rights, including the right to remain silent, the right to refuse searches, and the right not to disclose citizenship or birthplace. Even children are affected by these tensions. Teachers like Sylvelia Pittman at Nash Elementary reported students discussing possible ICE arrests, expressing concern about their friends, and saying farewells with uncertainty about returning. Despite these fears, Pilsen residents chose to celebrate their culture and community, demonstrating resilience, unity, and pride, while remaining vigilant in the face of looming federal enforcement. Chicago protesters defiant in face of Trump's deportation threats. Thousands of demonstrators took to the streets around Trump Tower in downtown Chicago on Saturday, protesting President Donald Trump's threats to escalate immigration enforcement and potentially deploy National Guard troops in the city. The protests coincided with Mexican Independence Day celebrations, which were noticeably subdued as residents feared increased deportations. Trump amplified tensions with social media posts depicting himself as a military officer from the movie Apocalypse Now, accompanied by the message, "I love the smell of deportations in the morning," above an image of flames against Chicago's skyline. For many protesters, these threats felt deeply personal, touching on family histories and immigrant experiences. Participants expressed concern over the possible militarization of Chicago, the nation's third largest city. While Vice President J.D. Vance later stated there were no immediate plans to deploy National Guard troops, protesters viewed previous deployments in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. as politically motivated actions in cities governed by Democrats. Many marchers waved Chicago city flags, emphasizing local unity against federal overreach. Individuals like Tracy Quinones and Peg Devlin highlighted personal connections to immigration struggles and historical experiences of fascism, reinforcing the sense of moral and civic urgency. In the Pilsen neighborhood, traditionally festive Mexican Independence Day parades were quieter and marked by caution. Folklorico dancers distributed Know Your Rights pamphlets, horses wore Mexican flag colors, and volunteers monitored for immigration and customs enforcement activity. Residents described the normally crowded streets as resembling a ghost town, and some local festivals were postponed or canceled amid fears of raids. Despite the anxiety, many attendees insisted on celebrating, with Isabel Garcia noting, "We're scared, but we're here. We're Mexican. We have to celebrate, and they're not going to stop us." Trump's rhetoric and prior actions, such as deploying 4,000 National Guard members and 700 Marines to Los Angeles, have sparked criticism for politicizing federal law enforcement and raising fears among immigrant communities. Beyond Chicago, Trump has suggested potential troop deployments in Baltimore and Louisiana, signaling a broader pattern of federal intervention in cities led by political opponents. Meanwhile, local communities continue to balance fear, resilience, and cultural celebration amid uncertainty about federal immigration enforcement. Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Jail. Miami District Court Judge Kathleen Williams. Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Jail can stay open, appeals court says. An appellate panel has temporarily halted a federal judge's order to shut down the Alligator Alcatraz Immigration Detention Center in the Florida Everglades, allowing its construction and operation to continue while Florida's appeal proceeds. Last month, Miami District Court Judge Kathleen Williams ordered the closure of the Trump-era facility within 60 days and barred new detainees, citing harsh conditions, detainee abuse, lack of due process, and environmental damage. She had earlier issued a temporary restraining order halting construction.
The Florida state government, which funded and built the remote camp and manages it for ICE, appealed. On Thursday, a 3-judge panel in Atlanta stayed Williams's closure order in a 2-1 ruling, citing public interest. The majority opinion found the Trump administration and Florida likely to prevail in legal challenges from environmental groups, ruling that the project did not require the federal environmental review typically triggered for federally funded projects. Although federal officials have pledged to cover expansion costs, no federal funds appear to have been used for construction. The $250 million, 18-acre facility, located 37 miles west of Miami in a subtropical wetland, was built rapidly under Governor Ron DeSantis to support Trump's immigration enforcement efforts. Its remote location, reminiscent of the former Alcatraz prison, was intended to deter escapes. The site, home to alligators, crocodiles, pythons, manatees, rare birds, and other wildlife, has sparked criticism over environmental impact. President Trump visited the facility, praising its harsh conditions, while some detainees report inadequate medical care and poor living conditions. Appeals court allows Alligator Alcatraz to continue operations for now. A federal appeals court has temporarily blocked an order to shut down the controversial Florida immigration detention facility known as Alligator Alcatraz, allowing its operations to continue while the case proceeds on appeal. The 11th U. South Circuit Court of Appeals granted a stay requested by the state of Florida and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, halting a preliminary injunction that would have required the facility to wind down within 60 days. A 3-judge panel, in a divided decision, ruled that the stay should remain in effect pending the appeal. The detention center, located in the Everglades at the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport, has faced widespread criticism for poor conditions, including extreme heat, bug infestations, and inadequate meals. Lawmakers and state representatives who visited the site have demanded its closure, citing humanitarian concerns. The controversy intensified after Florida Division of Emergency Management officials indicated that detainee numbers were decreasing, but the facility remained operational. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has defended the facility and announced plans to expand immigrant detention in the state with 2 additional sites: Deportation Depot in Northeast Florida and Panhandle Pokey in the Panhandle region. Florida Attorney General James Uthmere described the appeals court decision as a victory against an activist judge and aligned with President Trump's immigration agenda. The legal battle also involves environmental concerns. Plaintiffs, including environmental groups and the Miccosukee Tribe of Indians of Florida, argued that the facility violates the National Environmental Policy Act due to its impact on the Everglades ecosystem. They raised alarms about habitat loss, threats to endangered species, and environmental degradation. However, the appeals court majority ruled that the site is state-operated, not federally controlled, and therefore not subject to NEPA regulations. The court acknowledged that Florida could later seek federal reimbursement, but until formal approval is granted, the facility does not constitute a major federal action requiring environmental review. One dissenting judge disagreed, emphasizing that federal involvement including DHS requests, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement inspections, and federal funding announcements makes the detention site a federal project subject to environmental oversight. Plaintiffs maintain that the facility continues to cause irreparable harm and intend to pursue the case through appeals, with environmental and human rights groups pledging to fight for the site's closure. The DHS and state officials celebrated the stay, framing it as a victory for law enforcement and public safety, asserting that opposition is politically motivated rather than environmentally or legally justified. Governor DeSantis echoed this sentiment, stating that Alligator Alcatraz is open for business and indicating plans for further expansion of detention capacity. Opened in July at the former airport, the facility rapidly transformed into a tent city, drawing criticism for its remote, marshy location, which isolates detainees and raises concerns about access to legal representation. The Miccosukee tribe has highlighted potential harm to their nearby reservation lands and the sensitive Everglades ecosystem. The next stage of the legal process will determine whether the preliminary injunction to close the facility will be reinstated or permanently blocked. Overall, the video underscores ongoing tensions between state-led immigration enforcement initiatives, federal involvement, environmental protections, and human rights advocacy, with significant implications for immigration policy and environmental law in Florida and nationwide. Meanwhile, in Florida, the controversial Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center remains operational after an appeals court blocked its closure, highlighting ongoing clashes over immigration enforcement, human rights, and environmental concerns. That is all for today, in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later, in the next video. Till then, take care.
In Chicago, Mexican Independence Day celebration clouded by threats of ICE raids. Mexican Independence Day celebration in Chicago as a neighborhood were vibrant yet cautious and is a resident balanced culture fried with fear of federal immigration enforcement under President Trump. Parades featured music, costume performers, and families celebrating while attendees carried on visuals to alert each other to potential ICE visits. Across the city, some events were cancelled to postpone. The Latino Heritage Festival in Wakanda and long-standing parties in Waukegan, reflecting anxiety over it. Political leaders, including Representatives Mike Quick and Jesus Gracia, joined parades to show solidarity. While Mayor Brandon Johnson limited police cooperation with the federal agents and community groups, educated residents on their rights. Children and students expressed concern over possible arrest. Simultaneously, thousands protest near Trump's tower against Deportation threats, highlighting fears of National Guard deployment. In Florida, the controversial Alligator Alcatraz Detention Center in the Everglades remained open after an appeals court temporarily blocked its closure. Despite environmental and humanitarian criticism, Governor DeSantis plans further expansion.